This resistance is not enough, unless you are immune to instant death, but the means of immunity to instant death are extremely rare. Qinfeng's Deathwing Angel bloodline is one. In addition, the NPC template of the Killing Executioner is also one. Of course, ordinary NPCs will not come to this place. However, from the memory of the Killing Executioner Diarbad, Qinfeng also knew some other means of immunity to instant death, but these are all related to the ancient gods without exception. For example, the top grade Divine Medicine instant death immunity potion that can be obtained from some ancient god ruins, and tombs can be immune to instant death affixes within half an hour after taking it. For example, some divine weapons can also consume divinity to maintain their immunity to instant death affixes. Qinfeng's invincible divine weapons in his previous life belong to this category, but the divinity consumed is a bit too much, and the upper limit of divinity is not high enough, so it cannot last too long. Or there are some extremely short-term death-free skill, such as 5 seconds of real manliness. But the duration of such skills is even shorter. In short, there are very few ways to be immune to the instant death affix. Even if you have the bloodline of the Deathwing Angel, it is extremely difficult to obtain it. How can it be so easy to get a ranking in the Temple Challenge of the Goddess of Death? What's more, even if you can be immune to instant death, you must have super strong perception or dark vision to find the skeleton dragon in this darkness and kill it. Qinfeng does not have dark vision, but his shadow perception is better than dark vision. With multiple conditions added together, there are very few players who can handle it like Qinfeng. Even if you look at the entire civilization, almost no one else can do it. However, just as Qinfeng continued to fly up, his shadow perception told him that the skeleton dragons high in the dark space had already felt the threat, staring at him and flapping their wings to attack him. One after another, the locked bone spears came towards Qinfeng at a high speed in the darkness. Qinfeng tried to dodge with the shadow leap, but all those bone spears turned a corner and continued to track him at a very fast speed. Puff, 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 dodge, dodge, dodge. Dozens of bone spears were all dodged by Qinfeng's extremely high dodge rate. But at the same time, Qinfeng still heard the system prompt. Due to the effect of the bone spear, your movement speed flying, speed skill release speed is reduced by 90% in total. Due to the effect of the bone spear, the treatment effect you receive is reduced by 90%. Qinfeng's speed slowed down all of a sudden. How disgusting, Qinfeng cursed inwardly. Fortunately, the hit rate correction of these skeleton dragons is not too high. Although those bone spears can slow down Qinfeng, they do not pose much threat to Qinfeng, although it also comes with a rule effect of 90% weak healing. But it is not a ban on healing, so Qinfeng's dodge recovery can still be effective by 10%. Every time I am hit, I lose up to 23% of my health. And each time I dodge, I recover 10% based on the hit rate of these skeleton dragons. If they can kill me, they will be lucky enough to take home all the lottery prizes in the world. Dozens of attacks per second. Not even one hit Qinfeng. A series of dodge and plus 38822 words on his head. How can it be so cool? In this state, Qinfeng flew towards those skeleton dragons at a speed of more than 180 meters per second with a 90% deceleration. However, those skeleton dragons were very alert. When Qinfeng approached, they scattered and kept their distance from Qinfeng, not letting him get close. This is too disgusting. In fact, even if Qinfeng was slowed down by 90%, he still had a flying speed of more than 180 meters per second. This speed is faster than many top players outside. But after all, those skeleton dragons are all subordinates of the god of skeletons, so they must have this speed. As for the Shadow of Death, when Qinfeng was slowed down, the Shadow of Death would also be slowed down, and it was unreliable in this case. Finally, there is no other way. Come out. Grey Chicken, it's decided to be you. Qinfeng raised his hand and summoned the Hell Phoenix Grey Chicken, which had just evolved to the growth stage, to his side. Grandpa, I'm back again. Of course. This voice only sounded in Qinfeng's mind. What appeared next to Qinfeng was a completely invisible Hell Phoenix. This guy has grown up once now, but it is only in the growth stage. The wings of a phoenix are only about 1 meter wide, but it is good. At least I can fly now, and I don't have to worry about being thrown out by Osirio in the future. Since Qinfeng had communicated with the Grey Chicken in advance, so the Grey Chicken did not hesitate at all. As soon as it came out, it directly moved away from Qinfeng, so as not to be affected by the skeleton spears that locked Qinfeng's attack. Sure enough, these skeleton flying dragons don't have such a high anti-stealth level. The reason why they can lock me is because the rules of the skeleton god allow them to lock the players who challenge, but the Grey Chicken is not a player, so they can't see through the Grey Chicken's stealth. And now the Grey Chicken in the growth stage has upgraded its guns and cannons, and its combat effectiveness is incomparable to before. Hell Phoenix Grey Chicken growth period LV35. Grade: Epic Soulbound Untradeable. Strength: 4858. Constitution: Plat 77. Agility: 493. Spirit: 5116. Pet Template: obtain an epic pet template growth period, and the 4-dimensional attributes are increased. The increase is 30% of the owner's 4-dimensional attributes. Infant period: as a pet, this race has inherited the owner's professional characteristics. Shadow level 4. Growth period. As a pet, this race can choose one of the owner's bloodline skills or bloodline talents to inherit replaceable racial skills. Chaos power. Racial skills. Hellfire. Racial skills. Son of Chaos. Immune to the Chaos suffix. Immune to fire damage. Newly added racial skills. Hellfire. Release the Hellfire. Continuously burn the target and cause fire damage of 5% of the maximum health per second, not real damage. Fire resistance and damage reduction are effective. The burning state can be infinitely stacked, and the damage is increased by the mental attribute. New racial skill. Fountain of Chaos. Release it to a friendly group so that the friendly gains the effect of Chaos immunity and gains 50 points of Chaos affixes, which lasts for 10 minutes. Bad. Gray chickens in the growth period have a chance to change their names. After all, this thing is no longer gray now, and its feathers have turned black. Qinfeng asked it if it wanted to change its name to Little Blackie, but it was rejected. Then think of a name for yourself. The gray chicken said that this was its last chance to name itself, and it had to think about it carefully, and Qinfeng didn't care. The key is that after this thing grows up once, its combat power will increase sharply. It can even kill indiscriminately in the current situation. First of all, in terms of attributes, it originally only inherited 10% of Qinfeng's attributes, but now it is 30%. It should be said that this wave directly increased the gray chicken's attributes by nearly 2 times, except for the constitution. Since Qinfeng is a fragile with low constitution, so is the gray chicken. Then the growing hell phoenix has an additional racial ability, which is that it can choose one of Qinfeng's bloodline skills or bloodline talents to inherit, and can also be replaced at any time, but there is a 60-second cooldown. At this moment, Qinfeng of course let the gray chicken inherit the bloodline talent of the Deathwing Angel bloodline, immune to instant death effects. In fact, whether it is a mount or a pet, their own templates have a very high upper resistance, even comparable to that of the Ba. So in general, pets and mounts will not worry too much about the problem of upper resistance. But now, the environment where Qinfeng is in is too rich in instant death energy. Even an epic boss can't last a second here and will die directly. In this case, the gray chicken can only be qualified to fight here if it obtains instant death immunity. Then, the flames of the gray chicken in the growth stage are stronger. With the increase of spiritual attributes, the new skill of the gray chicken, Hellfire, can cause fire damage of 58% of the target's maximum health per second. Initially, it was only 5% each time. But because the gray chicken inherited the super high spiritual attribute from Qinfeng, the damage value increased to 58%. This damage is not real damage, but will be offset by fire resistance and damage reduction. But the key is, this damage can be stacked at this moment. The gray chicken has flapped its wing, and according to Qinfeng's reminder, it flew directly to a distance and sprayed fire at a skeleton, flying dragon invisibly. 2. 446 million burning. 4. 892 million burning. 7. 39 million burning. The fire resistance and damage reduction of these skeleton dragons can reduce the fire damage by about 50 times. But the fire damage keeps adding up, and its health bar drops at a speed visible to the naked eye. After being attacked, the skeleton dragon was confused. Which old man is attacking me? It started flying around, trying to dodge, but unfortunately the invisible gray chicken kept spitting fire behind it. In this darkness, an invisible contest began. At the 18th second of the gray chicken, the last damage jumped out on the health bar of the skeleton dragon, 43, 92 million. Then the health value was burned out. The skeleton dragon died. One was killed. Although the speed is a bit slow, it is only an epic Pete after all. And it is only in the growth stage. If it reaches adulthood and inherits 100% of my attributes, its damage will be even more fierce. Qinfeng felt everything that happened in the darkness and was quite satisfied. After all, each of the skeleton dragons around here has the attributes of an epic boss, and even the blood volume and damage reduction are higher than those of ordinary epic boss in front of the gray chicken. It can also be solved in less than 20 seconds, which is quite difficult. Now it can be said the gray chicken in the growth stage can finally stand on its own. Of course, in this case, Qinfeng can also pull his abyss puppet over, but there is no need. Let the gray chicken practice first. So the challenge of the god of skeletons, the dark space above the skeleton road, was directly in chaos. The invisible gray chicken sneaked everywhere and burned the skeleton dragons into bone slag one by one. 10 minutes later, Qinfeng took the gray chicken back to the pet space, flapped his wings, and flew back to the starting point of the skeleton road. Now, it's quiet. It feels so good not to be slowed down. Qinfeng smiled faintly. The death wings behind him moved, and he rushed into the challenge area of the skeleton road in an instant. Challenge starts. Time starts just when the system prompt sounded in Qinfeng's mind. He had already rushed several kilometers towards the skeleton road. Shadowfold. Shadowfold. It should be said that the shuttle speed of this skill is still faster than Qinfeng's pure flight, so Qinfeng flew while releasing Shadowfold, shuttled forward like a rocket. At this speed, even if he was not invisible, no one could see his figure with the naked eye. And behind him, above, the bodies of the 30 flying skeleton dragons were roasted into ashes by the gray chickens, and they could no longer launch a locked-on deceleration attack on Qinfeng. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Ainfeng quickly rushed out hundreds of kilometers, and then the skeleton road appeared bends and even ups and downs. The consequence of this is that the position of the wall lamps on both sides and the cycle of releasing the defensive barrier have changed, thus affecting the challenger's judgment. But now Qinfeng doesn't need to hide in the defensive barrier of the wall lamps at all. In one word, rush and it's over. Due to some bends and ups and downs in the slope, Qinfeng's speed was slightly affected. Finally, at the 77th second, Qinfeng arrived at the end of the skeleton road. It was a tightly closed door. In front of the door, there were more than a dozen bone steps, and in the middle of the steps, there was a looming treasure chest until Qinfeng rushed out of the finish line. Standing on the bone steps, the looming treasure chest finally condensed into a solid body. According to the time Qinfeng spent on this challenge, the treasure chest exuded a deep red light. Mythical. Only mythical. Qinfeng was very disappointed when he saw the color of the treasure chest. Even before entering the tomb. The divine weapon skeleton power given to him was already a mythical equipment. After entering the tomb and going through all the hardships to challenge it, it was still the best result. But the treasure chest was only mythical in this river. But soon, a system prompt sounded in Qinfeng's mind, which made him stunned. So this treasure chest is just a secondary reward, and the mythical level has reached the top. And the real core reward is the improvement of the ring's skeleton power. My speed and results in this challenge are ranked in the highest level. So the skeleton power ring has 9 more seals every time a seal is unlocked. An additional order can be added, and the ring attributes can be enhanced. Fuck. Qinfeng was shocked. 9 seals. 9 additional orders. This is too abnormal. The average player has at most 10 pieces of equipment on their body, and at most they can add 10 order effects. But Qinfeng can now add 10 with 1 ring, and the total for his body is 90. This is the core reward for his challenge in only 77 seconds. 9 is the extreme number. This should be the best reward for this challenge. Although you can get the mythical divine weapon of bone power by collecting 3 skeleton runes, the final form of this equipment is to unlock the 9-layer seal. In other people's skeleton power, it's hard to reach the 9th layer. It may be 3 or 4 layers, and the more powerful ones are 6 or 7 layers. Qinfeng doesn't know what the conditions are for adding 9 layers of seals to the skeleton power, but in short, this challenge will definitely be judged based on the challenger's level, attributes, and other aspects. Qinfeng glanced at the current skeleton power. Apart from the 9-layer seal, there are no other changes for the time being. To unlock the seal, just like before, you just need to kill the skeleton-type undead monsters. It is not difficult. Then, Qinfeng took a step forward and came to the treasure chest with a deep red light. Open the treasure chest, according to convention. The rewards of this treasure chest must be random. After Qinfeng opened the box, before he had time to see what was inside, he heard another system prompt. Congratulations on your Skeleton Road Challenge results, which have been appreciated by the Skeleton God. You have obtained the qualification for further challenges. Ban. If you are sure, please push open the white bone door in front of you and challenge the Skeleton God General, Great Swordsman Tarrogate. Warning. This challenge will definitely lead to your death, but if you can cause more damage to the Skeleton God General before you die, your ranking will be higher. In the end, according to your overall civilization ranking, you will be given a permanent gain. Reincarnation gain. Tip. If you rank first, you will receive a 90% bonus to the reincarnation attribute of additional damage reduction. Tip. After receiving the reward, your attribute will change in real time according to the real-time ranking of the challenge. Skeleton God General. Great Swordsman Taramon. Isn't this a bit too much? Qinfeng was a little dumbfounded, because he had seen this name in the classics, and even in the ancient divine language that Ashises taught him. There were characters specifically referring to this guy, because this guy was once a personal guard under the Skeleton God. In terms of level and strength, even if he is not as good as Ashises, he will not be far behind the white bone door in front of him. Could it be the real body of Skeleton God General and Great Swordsman Taramon? No, if he really exists at that level. This person can kill me with just a glance. There must be some restrictions anyway. Ranking first has 90% extra damage reduction, which is too outrageous. Once you get this damage reduction attribute, in the future, any damage Qinfeng receives will be reduced by 90%, which is only 1/10 of the original. Earlier, the old ghost Jian attacked Qinfeng with more than 50,000 damage each time. If there is such an attribute, the damage will be only a little over 5,000. What is the concept? Everyone who has played the game knows, but it's not easy to get the first place in the whole civilization. And if I'm the first now and someone surpasses me in the future, my reward attribute will be reduced accordingly. It's worthy of being a rare reincarnation gain challenge. Qinfeng had heard of the term reincarnation gain before, but it was said that it was very difficult to trigger in the previous life. No, the previous life, Qinfeng only heard that Tuchar, the master of Tianju, passed the challenge of a pure ancient god and obtained a reincarnation gain, which increased his cooling speed by more than 200%. This made Qinfeng feel that the reincarnation gain didn't seem to be that great. After all, in the later stages, the cooling speed of a mythical equipment was 400-500%, but now it seems that Master Tuchar didn't get a high enough ranking in the challenge. Otherwise, the cooling speed attribute would probably not be more than 200, but more than 2,000, or even higher. Faced with such an opportunity, Qinfeng would naturally not miss it. And it would be best to achieve a result that no one could surpass, and then win the first place. Before he pushed open the door of bones, Qinfeng first looked at the rewards from the treasure chest. Although the rewards from this kind of treasure chest are all random, but there is a good thing. The things opened are all in line with the player's own profession, so there is no need to worry about not being able to use them. There is a hat, which can just replace the assassination hood. Qinfeng looked at the most important equipment reward, N-Power Death Hood Mythic, Assassin Equipment. Physical Defense, plus 10-8. All Element Resistance, plus 8. Agility, plus 499. Hit Correction, plus 7 to 8%. Skill Release Speed, 25%. Required Level, 35. Special. Instant Death Resistance, plus 12. Unique Special Effect. N-Power increases damage to targets with health below 50% by 50%. Unique Special Effect. Death Gaze, your final hit correction increases by 35%. Yeah. The attributes of this equipment are average, and the special effects can only be said to be average, but after all, it is a mythical equipment, and it is better than the previous legendary Assassination Hood. The Assassination effect of the Assassination Hood is not very useful at present, so just pursue combat power. When Qinfeng put on this Death Hood, he looked at the attribute changes, Strength, Agility, Spirit, a 3170 Phrase 4. Hit Correction, Open the Eye of Destiny, 25%, 37%. Skill Release Speed, Full Stacking of Overload Thunder, 17.9%, 19.9%. Instant Death Resistance, 537, 5842, 5. Inviolability, 1049, 845. Overall, it has improved a lot. Only the inviolable affix has been reduced, but the impact is not great. Anyway, it is not something that ordinary players can break. Then there are other rewards. As we all know, in some ancient tombs and ruins, the final reward can get some strange things, many of which are not easily obtained in the outside world. For example, now Qinfeng has obtained a Peeling Stone and a Stone of Order. Normally, these two items are very precious, but for Qinfeng now, they are a bit dispensable. After all, he can now make at least 20 of these stones every day at a low cost. In addition, there is also a Magic Circle Foundation, Stone Mythical level. This thing can be said to be an unexpected gain for Qinfeng. You know, Qinfeng only spent 6,000 years of life to buy a Diamond level Magic Circle Foundation Stone from Brother Qi. After constructing the Life Source Magic Circle with that Diamond level Magic Circle Foundation Stone, any consumption related to life in the guild hideout will be reduced by 84%, which is already quite good. But if you replace it with this mythical Magic Circle Cornerstone, the life consumption related to the guild will be reduced by 97%. What does this mean? Whether it is teleportation, consuming life to replenish the defense barrier, repairing buildings, or building buildings, it only consumes 3% of the original life. Mythical Magic Circle Cornerstone. I haven't heard of many guilds owning it in the past 9 years. The explosion rate of this thing is extremely low. It must be said that Qinfeng's luck is still quite good. Soon, Qinfeng finished the rewards in the treasure chest. He was ready to enter the White Bone Gate in front of him. His last preparation was to take out the pile of magic potions bought from the young Tian Jixing. Increase damage to monsters by 5%. Increase damage to elites by 5%. Increase damage to women by 5%. Increase damage to men by 5%. Increase damage to undead creatures by 5%. After swallowing a bunch of magic potions, Qinfeng's gains were maxed out. He stepped forward and stretched out his hand, easily pushing open the white bone door. In front of Qinfeng was a wide white bone palace. There were some white bone pillars in the palace. The whole palace was about 200 meters in radius, and the place was still very large. At first glance, it was all white, which was a bit like the environment of the Judgment Land. Of course, the Judgment Land was all sacred and noble white jade brilliance. The white here was white and full of death, and in the middle of the entire hall, Qinfeng saw a 2-meter-tall human skeleton, which seemed to be frozen, holding a big sword in its hand, and kneeling on one knee facing the distance. When Qinfeng pushed open the white bone door and entered the hall, he could see the mark on its head from a distance. Skeleton, God General, Great Swordsman, Terramon La, balanced to level 35, Ancient God Guard. Current suppression level, 99999 layers. At the same time, Qinfeng's mind, a chilling system prompt sounded. Please challenge Skeleton God General, Great Swordsman, Terramon. That's thought. During the challenge, the number of suppression layers of Skeleton, God General, Great Swordsman, Terramon will decrease. The fewer the suppression layers, the greater its overall strength will be. How long can you last? Please be prepared to die. During the challenge, you can check your damage ranking at any time. When you are within 100 meters of the Skeleton God General, the challenge begins before the challenge begins. The Skeleton God General is invincible. Tip: your challenge results will be adjusted accordingly based on your level and the time you enter the game. Qinfeng understood. It turns out that the combat power of this boss is suppressed. and it is even suppressed by 99999 layers. As the battle time goes on, the number of suppression layers will decrease, making its combat power stronger and stronger. However, the ranking of this challenge is not based on who can last longer, but on who can cause more damage to it. Originally, if I were to compare with those high-level players, I might not be able to win. However, my results will be adjusted according to my level and the time I entered the game, just like the road to the end. This means that Qinfeng has a huge advantage in this challenge. After all, apart from him, who else can enter the Tomb of the Skeleton God and launch a challenge when it has not been 2 months since the God-forsaken game? Even if there is, it is difficult to achieve enough results and end the challenge of the Road of Skeletons. Just now, the results of the Road of Skeletons are not enough, and you are not even qualified to face the Skeleton God. After figuring out the situation and rules, Qinfeng did not act rashly for the time being. Instead, he activated the Abyss Gaze Curse before the challenge began, although the Skeleton God was invincible. Some detection methods might be effective. Facts have proved that Qinfeng's idea is correct. When Qinfeng came to the opponent's 101 meter range and stood still, he activated the Abyss Gaze Curse at a certain distance. Qinfeng quickly learned some current information about this Skeleton God General regarding its equipment, skills, and other abilities. All of them were displayed with question marks. However, Qinfeng could see some of its attributes. Skeleton God General, Great Swordsman Taramon, Nayame 99, Layers of Suppression, Health Value, 10 million, Physical Defense, 100, All Element Resistance, 100, Zeben, Solid Defense, 50%, Damage Reduction, 99, Brian, Damage Resistance, 10, Zeben, Hit Correction, 10,000%, Dodge Rate, 99%, Anti-Stealth Level, 20, Upper Resistance. One can stack the upper scale, but will not enter the upper state. All upper affixes. 100 points. Qinfeng only took a glance and turned off the skill of Abyss Gaze Curse. In just 2 seconds, he consumed more than 20 years of life. However, this consumption is definitely worth it. Being able to see the target's attribute list, Qinfeng will be able to adjust his playing style in a targeted manner. Qinfeng quickly analyzed the attributes of the Skeleton God General. This guy's upper limit is only 10 million. But his current health is 0. It means that this guy will not die even if his health reaches 0. This defense, elemental resistance, solid defense, and damage reduction are quite fierce. This is still under 999 layers of suppression. In terms of hit correction, it is 10,000%, which is 100 times the hit. And the probability of hitting is only about 120. The anti-self level is only level 20, which is even less threatening. The only thing to pay attention to is the dodge rate. This guy also has 99% dodge. If I don't open the Eye of Destiny, my hit correction is only 4295%. The final hit rate of attacking it is only over 40%. Qinfeng knew that he had to open the Eye of Destiny as soon as the fight started. Otherwise, he couldn't guarantee a 100% hit. Next is the attributes of the upper affixes. The upper resistance is only 1. When the upper resistance is less than 100, as long as the upper scale is stacked, it will not be automatically reduced. That is to say, as long as I put on 7 upper affixes at the beginning, it will always exist on it. And I can always get the 140% damage increase of the upper scale provided by the source of the upper. At the same time, this guy actually has 100 points of all upper affixes. This is an aspect that must be paid attention to. Qinfeng is immune to the instant death affix, so there is no need to distribute it. Stripping affixes anyway. As long as 7 upper affixes are added at the beginning, Qinfeng's damage is full, and it doesn't matter if they are stripped later. It will not affect the output. But Qinfeng must distribute the other 5 upper resistances evenly. Confusion, Whispering, Nightmare. These 3 are needless to say. The other 2 are Withering and Corruption. If the Withering scale reaches 100%, then Qinfeng's final damage will be reduced by 99%. And it can be said that there is no need to hit any output. If the Corruption meter reaches 100%, all of Qinfeng's gain states will be invalid. And it will also have a great impact on the output capacity. These 5 are the upper states that must be avoided. Qinfeng's current upper resistance total value is 4795 points, which is evenly distributed to the 5 upper resistances, each of which is 959 points when I am invisible. The upper meter slows down by 97, 44%, and my 5 upper resistances are equivalent to 37468 points in 75 seconds. This skeleton god will not be able to make my upper meter reach 100%. After allocating the upper resistance, Qinfeng can be said to be temporarily worry-free in this regard, but Qinfeng knows, as the battle progresses, the various attributes of this skeleton god will be enhanced and strengthened over time. Puppet, come. Gray chicken, come. Qinfeng raised his hand and finally pulled the abyss puppet to his side. And looking at the abyss puppet, which was still only at the ancient level, Qinfeng reluctantly spent 50,000 evolution points to directly evolve it to the immortal level. There was no other way. In order to maximize the damage in this challenge, Qinfeng had to do his best, use all the current resources. Originally, the evolution points were reserved for evolving the Slayer, but now they can only be used up first. When the abyss puppet evolves to the immortal level, the next evolution will require 800,000 evolution points. don't know if the next evolution will be able to evolve to the original primary level. There is still a question about this for the time being, but at this time, this Abyss Puppet can inherit almost all of Qinfeng's equipment and skill. Except for the original primary things that Qinfeng really kept in his box, the combat ability of this Abyss Puppet is not much different from that of Qinfeng himself. The 3 key skills of the Immortal Shadowfold, the Blessing of the Lightning Fairy, and the Source of the Upper Level are also inherited. However, don't think that this Abyss Puppet seems to have doubled Qinfeng's combat power and damage. In fact, fighting against the Skeleton God General is not a simple hang-up. Before, Qinfeng didn't have to worry about letting the Abyss Puppet hang out outside to kill monsters. But now this challenge requires Qinfeng to operate the Abyss Puppet carefully. This Abyss Puppet can only accept Qinfeng's orders and actions. It has no IQ and ideas of its own. In order to maintain the highest damage in an extremely fast-paced battle, and consider the issue of survival, Qinfeng needs super strong dual-line operation ability. Gray Chicken. When the fight starts, you cast the Spring of Chaos for me, Qinfeng explained. The Spring of Chaos can make Qinfeng immune to the Chaos Affix if it is not dispelled. Qinfeng can evenly distribute the Chaos resistance in the upper resistance to the other 4 during the battle, so that he can persist longer. Minister, I obey your order. The Gray Chicken stood beside Qinfeng. Now it looked like Qinfeng, although it was much shorter, but also much wider. It looked like a little chicken before, but now it has the embryonic form of a phoenix, but it still looks like a funny guy. In addition to the puppet and the Gray Chicken, Qinfeng also summoned Osirio and Samia. Based on the properties of the Skeleton God General, Qinfeng has judged that the attacks of these 2 mounts cannot break the defense of the Skeleton God General, but they can help Qinfeng bear the damage after all, so it is still useful. You two, move along the edge of the field in a while, one on the far left and the other on the far right, and move clockwise at the same speed. Qinfeng told Osirio and Samia. You don't need to come in to fight, but you can absorb the damage for me. Samia, the smooth lavender snake girl. Got it. Osirio, I became a tool man. Qinfeng, tool dragon. Thank you. Osirio burst into tears. But don't look at this guy as a mess. He is still very reliable when he is really needed. Immediately communicated with Samia, and they rushed to the edge of the venue. In this way, the preparations were done. As for the Meat Mountain puppet, I said before that this thing can bully noobs, but if it is really used for attacking, the damage is definitely not enough. Just like Osirio and Samia, it can't break the defense of the Skeleton God, so there is no need to pull it over. At this time, not only Qinfeng, but also Gray Chicken, Osirio, Samia, etc. all looked solemn. They all knew how important this occasion was. Finally, Qinfeng spent the remaining evolution points, 30,000, to evolve the skill of Instant Destruction to the Immortal level. In this battle, Instant Destruction will be the core output method. Instant Destruction, Ancient level, Immortal level. Assassin's finishing move, consume 100 combo points. Instantly slash all targets within 5 meters in front of you, with adds agility x64955 physical attack points. If the target has continuous damage, all continuous damage will be increased by 100% to 150% and detonated instantly. Required level 3542. Mythic effect, the combo points consumed by this skill are halved. Bam. Ancient effect, when continuous damage detonates, the target's upper resistance is weakened by 60%, 70%, which lasts for 10 minutes. Bye. Immortal new effect. This skill will consume all combo points and increase the combo points according to the consumed combo points. The basic damage of instant kill has been increased by half, and the sustained damage of the burst is 50% higher. The most important thing is the new effect of Immortal level. You should know that Qinfeng's combo point limit is 300 points, which means that each instant kill will increase the damage by 300%, which is equivalent to 4 times the damage. With this special effect, instant kill will be the main output skill in the future. Other skills are all for instant kill, and because of the mythical effect, the combo point consumption is halved. So in fact, I can release instant kill multiple times in a row. The first instant kill consumes 150 combo points, but gets a 300% damage bonus. The second instant kill consumes 75 combo points, gets a 150% damage bonus, and at the same time bursts out the throat-cutting damage caused by the first instant kill. After a little thought, Qinfeng has already clarified the output method in the future. Let's start. After getting ready, Qinfeng did not move forward to activate the Skeleton God General. Instead, he first released Shadowfold on the spot, and released it 10 times in a row. After stacking the Overload Thunder, he opened the Eye of Destiny. 7 eyes suddenly opened on Qinfeng's head, and each eye was filled with the breath of death. As the saying goes, more eyes, more clear. After opening the Eye of Destiny, Qinfeng's hit correction remained at the peak state. Then he manipulated the Abyss Puppet, one on the left and one on the right, directly from 100 meters away to the Skeleton God General's Shadowfold. Qinfeng's move not only directly obtained the double attack effect after Shadowfold, but also approached the Skeleton God General at the fastest speed. And when Qinfeng entered the 100-meter range, the challenge started counting directly. After approaching at this moment, Qinfeng and the Abyss Puppet. Each of them is a savior of robbery. Take it. You release the Snake Master on Skeleton God General Great Swordsman Taramon. You stole Strength, 10,000 mana. You stole Constitution, 10,000. You stole Agility, 10,000. You stole Spirit, 10,000. After directly stealing the Master's hand, Qinfeng's all attributes skyrocketed. Awesome. As expected of an Ancient God Guardian, this 4-dimensional attribute can directly steal 10,000 points. As an Ancient God Guardian, what are the 4-dimensional attributes of the Skeleton God General? Qinfeng has no way of knowing. It looks like a question mark. But the 4-dimensional attributes of the Skeleton God General are definitely not just 50, and the limit of the Snake Master's hand is not to steal 10,000 points of attributes. It could only be that there was some kind of rule on the Skeleton God General that limited the use of the Snatching Saint hand. In other words, using the Snatching Saint hand on the Skeleton God General could only steal 10,000 points of all attributes at most. No way. But even so, it's enough to explode. Qinfeng's all attributes skyrocketed, and his physical attack power and elemental attack power almost doubled. The biggest change was his health. Since his basic physique was less than 3,000, his health increased to 1,688 million after a surge of 10,000. Qinfeng didn't pay attention to his own attributes after the Snatching Saint hand was activated. He immediately launched a violent offensive, End Mark, Shadow of Slaughter, Ruthless Cut, Thousand Blades Break, Instant Destruction, Instant Destruction. 2 consecutive instant destructions. This is not random. Qinfeng came prepared and had already calculated the damage. The first instant kill is to deal basic damage and enter the throat cut state. And the second instant kill is the real damage burst. As for why instant kill is used to enter the throat cut state, because in this situation, the disadvantages of Qinfeng's Thousand Blade Break skill have already appeared. When Qinfeng made a move, a series of appeared above the head of the Skeleton God General, who had just been activated and had not yet stood up. The Thousand Blade Break skill cannot break the defense. The first Thousand Blade Break is just to add 4x weakness damage multiplier to the subsequent damage, and this is not because the Thousand Blade Break skill is too rubbish. It is not that Qinfeng's attributes are too low. On the contrary, the reason why the Thousand Blade Break cannot break the defense is Qinfeng's agility attribute is too high. Because the agility attribute is too high, Qinfeng's Thousand Blade Break now directly slashes 473 times. The more slashes you make, the more superimposed the fixes you will have, but correspondingly, the single damage will become lower and lower. This is the characteristic of Thousand Blade Break. In the final analysis, this is not a skill that deals damage. It is a skill that adds status and affixes, usually. Because Qinfeng's opponents are not strong enough and the damage resistance attribute is not high. The damage defect of this skill has not been revealed. But in front of the Skeleton God, the Thousand Blade Break skill with too many slashes is directly offset by the opponent's damage resistance. Therefore, the real damage can only be dealt by the instant destruction that has just evolved to the immortal level. And when Qinfeng's first instant destruction was launched, 12 damage numbers appeared directly above the Skeleton God's head. 11. 655 million weak point attack. 11. 652 million weak point attack. 11. 657 million weak point attack. This is the damage caused by Qinfeng, the Abyss Puppet, and the 5 shadow clones released by each of them at the same time. The Abyss Puppet did not inherit the Blade of Judgment, and held a legendary dagger in its hand. The damage was slightly lower, but the instant annihilation it released was also more than 9 million. Then the second instant annihilation was launched, and the continuous damage burst out instantly. 796 billion. This Skeleton God General, his bones are really hard. Looking at the damage that jumped out at the end, Qinfeng was a little surprised. He had improved so much. If he was dealing with a legendary boss outside, the damage would definitely be hundreds of billions. But it was less than 1/10 of the damage to the Skeleton God General. And when Qinfeng finished this wave of damage, Qinfeng saw that the health value of the Skeleton God General became current health value, 992 billion. But the Skeleton God General did not die. It is the guardian of the God of Skeletons, and is protected by the rules of the God of Skeletons. Even if the health value becomes negative, it will not die. Even the reason why the health value is displayed is just to count the damage caused by Qinfeng. Just as Qinfeng released this set of skills in just 3 seconds. That Skeleton Bone God General, Great Swordsman Taramon, moved directly. The greatsword in his hand instantly chopped around in a circle. Under normal circumstances, Qinfeng would naturally be able to react and dodge. After all, the speed of the Skeleton God General was not fast, but Qinfeng did not need to dodge. With the hit correction of this Skeleton God General, it was not so easy to hit Qinfeng. What Qinfeng needed to do now was to save all time and continue to burst out output, even if he was really hit by the opponent, and the opponent's skills were a little special. Qinfeng did not have to be afraid of sudden death. After all, there were Osiris, Grey Chicken, and Samia around him to bear the damage. When the 3 of them got into trouble, it would not be too late for Qinfeng to be alert to the opponent's skills. So, swish. The greatsword in the hands of the Skeleton God General swept in a ring, bursting out a terrifying ring of knife light. and instantly spread to the surroundings. Qin Feng and the Abyss Puppet were all hit by the knife light, and dozens of layers of damage-free shields were instantly cleared. Dodge, dodge. As expected, Qin Feng dodged the blade completely. But Han Feng found that after he was hit, the 5 higher level gauges were stacked up a little too fast. Even the stripping gauge was directly pulled up to more than 30%. No wonder this guy is so slow to use the knife. It turns out that it is a power type skill. Although it is slow, it has bonuses in all aspects. This skill has the effect of special attack against shields, and it also comes with at least 10 times the higher level affix bonus. Its own higher level affix is only 100 points. But when this skill is released, it can directly add more than Y, and higher level gauges to the target. Because of this, Qin Feng's stripping gauge skyrocketed, because he did not allocate the higher level resistance to stripping. If he is hit a few more times, all of Qin Feng's higher level affixes will be invalid. However, Qin Feng did not care, because the Skeleton God General already had 1 point of each upper scale, which made Qin Feng's Nightmare State 80% damage increase and Upper Affix 140% damage increase, all effective. Qin Feng could understand this setting. The Skeleton God was intentional. In fact, the Skeleton God General himself is probably immune to all upper affixes. But in this case, it is unfair to the players who specially stacked this part of the independent damage multiplication area. For example, if Qin Feng did not have this part of the damage increase, the final total damage would be less than a quarter of the current one, thus falling into a disadvantage in this challenge. It seems that the skills of the Skeleton God General cannot be taken too much. Qin Feng glanced at his upper scale. Nightmare, Whisper, Wither, and Corruption. These 4 scales have been directly superimposed to about 3%. And this is just one knife. Only the Chaos scale is temporarily immune because the Grey Chicken released the Spring of Chaos. Of course, this degree is not very dangerous. While the opponent was slashing out in a circular shape, Qin Feng continued to attack. He released the End Mark on the Skeleton God General in the first move, so Qin Feng could quickly gain combo points. After releasing 2 consecutive instant kills, Qin Feng only had 75 combo points left. This greatly affected the direct damage of the instant kill, as well as the subsequent throat-cutting damage caused by the instant kill. So Qin Feng inserted a 1000 Blades Breaking Strike in the middle, raised the combo points to 300 points, then another 2 consecutive instant kills. This time, the Skeleton God General did not stand still and take the beating, but stomped his feet and flew into the sky. Qin Feng reacted quickly and followed up immediately, releasing instant kill while flying. But the opponent was too fast, and Qin Feng's instant kill finally landed on the opponent's thigh bone. Fortunately, there was a high enough weakness hit correction, so Qin Feng's 2 consecutive instant kills were directly judged to fall on the opponent's head. Billions of damage burst out again. The Skeleton God's hollow eye socket seemed to be lifeless. Although he was 2 meters tall, he looked not much different from Qin Feng, and did not have the oppressive feeling of a giant. But after it leaped into the sky, a dark white flame lit up in its eyes, and the giant sword in its hand swept across again. Dodge. Weak point attack. Transfer damage 33205 to mounts and pets. Qin Feng's Abyss Puppet still dodged, but Qin Feng himself was hit by the sword. Although the damage was transferred, he was still swept away by the sword light and crashed into the ceiling of the Bone Hall. It released a skill that increases the hit rate. Although it can't hit me 100%, it already has a good hit rate. Qin Feng was swept away by a sword and hit the ceiling heavily. He frowned and roughly calculated that the basic damage of the Skeleton God's sword reached more than 100 million before he could come to his senses. The Skeleton God General had already swept a blade of energy from a distance toward the place where he hit the ceiling. Although Qin Feng was invisible, the opponent could not see through it for the time being. But Qin Feng was smashed on the ceiling, which allowed the Skeleton God General to accurately determine Qin Feng's position. A blade of light more than 10 meters wide swept over in an instant. Shadow Fold. Qin Feng did not hesitate at all, and directly made a Shadow Fold, moving forward towards the opponent's blade. With the invincibility effect during the Shadow Fold, he staggered with the opponent's blade. He returned to the side of the Skeleton God General, another set of 1000 Blade Break plus Instant Destruction Burst. In just 1 second, Qin Feng played 3 sets of bursts, directly causing more than 15 billion total damage to the Skeleton God General. This is the norm in the later stages of battle. Due to the improvement of agility and speed, the battles of players in the later stages are often only a matter of seconds. The improvement of player attributes is not just the improvement of attack power and health. The improvement of speed is particularly critical. This is the most terrifying crushing of the strong against the weak. The world's martial arts can only be broken by speed. This sentence still makes sense. However, just 1 second later, the suppression layer of Skeleton God General, Great Swordsman, Teramon was reduced from 99 layers to 98 layer. I saw a layer of white flames ignited on the surface of the Skeleton God General's body, changing its attributes. There was no change in defense, only the attack changed. The basic hit correction was increased from 1000% to 2000%. The basic anti-stealth level was increased from level 20 to level 40. The basic upper affix was increased from the original 100 points to 200 points. All doubled. Now this Skeleton God General still can't find my trace. Keep going. At the same time, Great Chicken was also affected by the Abyss Withering Curse thrown by Qin Feng in advance, and flew directly to the side to treat Osirio and Samiya, who were transferred to the damage. In fact, Great Chicken tried to attack the Skeleton God General. As a result, the Skeleton God General was burned with Hellfire, and a damage number 61 appeared on his head, which made Great Chicken autistic. How can Phoenix play this? Bad review. In fact, this is because its Hellfire is a percentage of health damage. Although it is affected by damage reduction and fire resistance, it will not be blocked by damage. Otherwise, it would not even have the 61 points of damage. Part of the reason is that the Skeleton God General's upper limit of life is only 10 million. So Great Chicken can't play it at all, only when it unlocks one layer of suppression. Its upper limit of life is increased to 20 million, but the damage of the Great Chicken is still not good enough, even if it doubles. So it just went to be the assistant obediently. The assassin of the Blue Star Civilization. Suddenly, the Skeleton God General, the Great Swordsman, Taramon, actually made a deep voice. Your damage is very high. You can stop for a while. Let's talk. Talk about your sister. Anfeng was not fooled at all. It seems that although this guy is suppressed, he is indeed a genuine ancient god guard. It actually has the ability to think. In any case, this kind of NPC is full of tricks. For Qin Feng, he only believes in the challenge rules given by the god-forsaken game. At this time, if you really stop, you will definitely be a fool. Swish. Qin Feng followed with a shadow jump, and together with the Abyss Puppet, it instantly killed 2 consecutive times. Seeing this, the Great Swordsman Taramon laughed out loud, raised his hand, and swept the giant sword in his hand. This time, Qin Feng didn't just sit there and wait for the opponent to sweep him. After all, the opponent's hit rate correction doubled, and with the hit rate bonus of the skill, Qin Feng's dodge might not be able to stop it. So, Shadow Leap. When the opponent drew his sword, Anfeng instantly Shadow Leaped away, flashing to a different height from the Skeleton God General, and then raised his hand to throw a Shadow Blade at the Skeleton God General in the sky. The Shadow Blade could barely cause more than 200 Zezen damage, but the key was to replenish Qin Feng's combo points. The next moment, the opponent's giant sword swept over, and after the knife light spread out, Qin Feng returned with another Shadow Fold, and the second combo was instantly eliminated, repeatedly like this. The Skeleton God General, who could not see through Qin Feng's invisibility, entered an extremely passive state. Another second later, the number of suppression layers of the Skeleton God General was reduced to 997 layers. The basic hit rate correction reached 3000%. The basic anti-stealth level has reached level 60. The basic upper affix has reached 300 points. At this time, Qin Feng can no longer be affected by his skills. It can be imagined that the opponent's hit rate is already extremely high, and the upper affix is already 3 times the original. One hit is 10% of the upper scale. Fortunately, the opponent still can't see through Qin Feng's invisibility. Qin Feng keeps circling, and the death wings keep opening and closing, taking him like a death messenger, shuttling around in the field. Time passes second by second. Every second that passes, the number of suppression layers of the Skeleton God will be reduced by 1 layer. This makes Qin Feng have to sigh at the difficulty of this challenge. By the 5th second, the total damage caused by Qin Feng has reached 80 billion. That is, at this time, the basic anti-stealth level of the Skeleton God finally reached level 100. It can see Qin Feng. Oh, Deathwing Angel Bloodline. Skeleton the God General held a great sword, and the white flames in his pupils reflected the translucent figure of Qin Feng. The iconic Deathwings behind him made the ancient God Guard laugh. Interesting. It's been less than 2 months since I entered the God-forsaken game, and I have such output ability. Looking at the whole civilization, it is also a rare existence. Next, let's see how your survival ability is. As soon as the voice fell, the Skeleton God General held a huge sword and instantly stabbed Osirio, who was running next to him. It was too fast, and Osirio couldn't react in time. But Qin Feng reacted. He raised his hand and put Osirio into the mount space, although he couldn't release it in a short time. It was better than being hacked to death. At the same time, Anfeng followed the Skeleton God General like a shadow, and continued to output. Instant annihilation. Instant annihilation. The Skeleton God General didn't dodge, and stuck Qin Feng while releasing his skills, and stabbed Qin Feng with a backhand sword. This sword, with its mighty power, hit Qin Feng on the spot. As the attributes of the Skeleton God General were enhanced, the damage transferred to Great Chicken and Samiya reached 66. At the same time, Qin Feng was directly repelled by the sword and crashed into the white bone wall in the distance. Damage transfer? The Skeleton God General looked indifferent. The reduction in the number of suppression layers made it faster. It seemed to dodge the attack of the Abyss Puppet from behind Qin Feng with a flash. But it only seemed to dodge, because Qin Feng's weakness hit correction was too high. Even if he deviated from a person's position, he could still accurately hit the opponent's weakness. The Skeleton God General was a little confused. How did this level 35 Blue Star Assassin stack the weakness hit correction so high? Is this really reasonable? Swish, swish, swish. Without giving the Skeleton God time to react, Qin Feng returned with the Shadow Warp and continued to swing the Blade of Judgment and the Blade of White Bud. 6th second, 7th second, 8th second. it can be seen that the Skeleton God did not use too many fancy skills after all. This was just a damage test, and many of its skills were restricted by the challenge rules and could not be used until the 10th second. Qin Feng's total damage to it had exceeded 150 billion, reaching nearly 160 billion. The giant sword in the Skeleton God's hand ignited a forest white flame. Every time it swings, it can leave a forest white flame mark on the field. The flame mark exists permanently and can cause damage. The next moment, it slashed at Samiya and Grey Chicken with a sword. Collect? Ivan took them all back without hesitation, and took this opportunity to give the Skeleton God another set, exploding nearly 5 billion damage. Unexpectedly, the Skeleton God General was also faking a move. He originally aimed his sword at Shamia, but turned around and slashed at Qin Feng. When Qin Feng attacked, he hit Qin Feng's chest with a sword. But what surprised the Skeleton God General was that no damage number popped up above Qin Feng's head, but the whole person was chopped away. This is the effect of Shadow Arc. When there is no pet or mount on the scene, and the damage is borne by Qin Feng himself, the Shadow Arc will be triggered. This knife hit directly, causing more than 100,000 damage, but temporarily on Qin Feng's health bar. It only shows as a gray health bar, and during this period, Qin Feng flashed back with a shadow jump and threw a shadow blade to absorb the health loss. For the next 5 seconds, Qin Feng has never really been hurt by the effect of Shadow Arc, but at the 15th second, the Skeleton God General's attack comes with continuous fire damage. At this point, Qin Feng could no longer dodge the opponent's attack, and the Skeleton God General was very insidious. Every time he took advantage of Qin Feng's attack, he would launch a counterattack. This left Qin Feng with no choice but to take the opponent's damage. After all, Qin Feng's goal was to achieve a higher burst from the 15th to 20th second. Qin Feng was already in great danger because the white flames were burning all over his body. Each layer would cause him more than 100,000 damage per second. He had to keep attacking the Skeleton God General to offset the damage, and even the gray blood bar above his head soon reached several million and even more and more. The gray blood bar had exceeded Qin Feng's total blood volume. If it weren't for the Shadow Arc, Qin Feng would have been dead. Even so, Qin Feng was still desperately attacking. Just when his upper level gauge was almost full, he asked the Abyss Puppet to come and help block the knife. Qin Feng and the Abyss Puppet took turns blocking the knife. Both of them had the gauge clearing effect of the old Calamity Snake Fang, always keeping the upper gauge on their bodies from reaching 0%. At the 20th second, the total damage was 320 billion, and at this moment, the speed of the Skeleton God General suddenly skyrocketed. Qin Feng released a flash annihilation, and the Skeleton God General could use 2 swords, one to knock him away, and then another sword. And as the white flames burned on Qin Feng's body, Qin Feng found that the effect time of his Shadow Arc was gradually shortening. Originally, the damage could be delayed to 3 seconds, but soon, the damage would explode after 2 seconds, and then after 1 second. However, Qin Feng didn't care, just relied on the shadow jump, and smashed down with a set of flash annihilation. No matter how many times Qin Feng was knocked away and what damage he suffered, his damage output did not fall at all. The latter time was almost the same as the initial second damage, but from the 20th second, Qin Feng finally couldn't stand. His health began to be damaged, although he could suck back blood. With the increasing frequency of the damage from the Skeleton God's sword flash, sword slash, and white flame burning, Qin Feng's attack frequency was too fast to suck blood. 25 seconds, Qin Feng's health points were insufficient and finally returned to 0. Death. Is it over? The Skeleton God's eyes were burning with white flames. This is the first time such a brave character has appeared in the Blue Star civilization. Whose general is he? This result can already rank first in the entire civilization. The main thing is that the Blue Star assassin in front of him has been resisting its damage, although its fire damage does not have a superordinate effect. But the superordinate effects of each of its swords is getting higher and higher, and now it is 25 times the original. Even if he took turns with the puppet to block the knife, Qin Feng was able to hold on until now, which made the Skeleton God feel incredible. Even some guys at level 50 or 60, with their means, it would be difficult to withstand me for 10 seconds. This Blue Star assassin is not simple. Just when the Skeleton God General, the great swordsman Teramon, thought it was over, suddenly, swish, swish, Qin Feng's Abyss Puppet gave the Skeleton God 2 more instant kills in succession. What the hell is this Abyss Puppet? The main body is dead. According to convention, shouldn't the challenge be over? Just as the Skeleton God was stunned, suddenly, a burst of white light appeared at the place where Qin Feng's body was burned to ashes by the white flames. Thank you for the spring armor sent by my brother from Florida. Qin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Ascension Machine. The resurrection effect is effective. This equipment comes from the mechanical Rubik's Cube, which was sent by players from Florida. North America, it's really touching. When Qin Feng was resurrected, he knew that the next strategy would be different from before. Next, we must pay more attention to saving our lives. So, Shadow Blade, Shadow Blade, Shadow Blade, Shadow Blade. Qin Feng directly transformed into a Dartman, together with the Abyss Puppets and Shadow Clones. Bew, bew, bew. Nearly 200 Shadow Blades flew out in 1 second. When the throat-cutting damage of these Shadow Blades is fully effective, the total damage added up to more than 1 billion. Let the Abyss Puppet take the opportunity to sneak attack and launch instant destruction. detonating the continuous damage to 5 times, which can also make Qin Feng's DPS reach 3 billion. The Skeleton God General was not surprised by Qin Feng's resurrection, but chased Qin Feng directly. However, every time he attacked Qin Feng, Xin Feng would directly Shadowfold and resist the opponent's predicted attack with the invincible effect. The enemy advances, I retreat. The enemy retreats, I advance. This made the Skeleton God General directly confused. It found that when Qin Feng launched the kite tactic, although the DPS was reduced a lot, it had no chance to attack Qin Feng at all. The reason is, the invincible effect of Shadowfold is too outrageous. Moreover, Qin Feng's cooling speed is superimposed to the extreme, and he can get a Shadowfold charge every 2 seconds. Although the damage of the Dartman is a bit humorous, Xin Feng is almost always invincible and does not need to get close to the opponent to take risks. Moreover, this damage is only compared with Qin Feng's close range burst, and the damage of more than 3 billion per second makes Qin Feng's challenge results continue to improve. During this period, Qin Feng did not even look at his damage ranking list, because like the end of the road, Qin Feng's ranking will be weighted according to his entry time and level after the challenge. So, with the Shadow Blades thrown one by one, Qin Feng's total damage score is getting higher and higher. 400 billion, 410 billion, 420 billion. The number of suppression layers of the Skeleton God General is also getting less and less until the 59th second of the battle. The number of suppression layers has been reduced to 9940 layers. At this time, the speed and attack frequency of the Skeleton God General have all reached a level that Qin Feng cannot resist. Even the Shadow Jump can't cool down. At this time, the Skeleton God General can cause 380,000 damage to Qin Feng with just one sword, directly triggering the injury limit. Even the flame attached to it takes effect dozens of times per second, and the damage each time is 380,000. This really made Qin Feng unable to bear it. The value of the Skeleton God General went up. In the end, Qin Feng was killed by the Skeleton God General again. However, before dying, Xin Feng still threw out 2 sets of instant destruction with his backhand, and finally burst out 5 billion damage before dying. Just after this last burst, Xin Feng's blood volume returned to 0 under the burning of the white flame. At the same time, a system prompt came from his mind. You have died, and the challenge is over. But you have only entered the godforsaken game for 52 days after the game time is weighted. Your final damage value is 65 trillion. Man. Congratulations on getting the final ranking of the Skeleton God Reincarnation Challenge. No. 1. Congratulations on getting the Reincarnation Attribute. Additional damage reduction of 90%. Shamam. Congratulations on getting 1 skill inheritance opportunity. Please communicate with Skeleton God General Great Swordsman Tyramon. Meh. Xin Feng's original score was only more than 465 billion damage, but because he entered the game for a short time, the final score was weighted. Reached the top. Awesome. Qin Feng opened his eyes again and found that he was resurrected in this bone palace. When he opened the attribute panel, he found that there was an additional reincarnation gain interface. Clicking it to check. The additional damage reduction of 90% was clearly visible, and it showed the most high-end black and gold color, and this made Qin Feng's original 94, 3% damage reduction soared to 99, 43%. Because of my low physique, my physical defense is still a little bit worse. But in terms of elemental resistance, my tankiness is already half of the Skeleton God General just now. If nothing else, if it happens again, Qin Feng's score can increase by more than half. After all, he can hold on longer. It was at this time, Qin Feng can check the overall ranking of this Skeleton God General Challenge, although he can't see who is on the list. But Qin Feng saw that the second ranked player had a final challenge score of 495 trillion damage, which is only about 15% of Qin Feng. It seems that no one can surpass this result. Qin Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Although he could deal higher damage with higher levels, the defense and damage reduction of the Skeleton God General would also increase accordingly. So this challenge was generally fair. Then he glanced at the bottom of the leaderboard and saw that the player who was originally ranked 100th had a final challenge result of a 40 million damage. Originally, there was a 60% damage reduction benefit, but just now he was squeezed to 101st by Qin Feng, and only the consolation prize of 10% damage reduction was left. I don't know which unlucky guy it is. Qin Feng smiled and didn't think much about it. When Qin Feng looked up, he found that the 9940 layers of suppression on the Skeleton God General had been cleared, and the body was surrounded by terrifying white flames. And he came to Qin Feng with a big sword and laughed. Every step it took froze the surrounding space, and even the air stopped flowing. I don't know what kind of rules and means it was. When it approached Qin Feng felt that the space he was in was frozen, and his body could not move at all. This is the true strength of the Ancient God's personal guard, just as Qin Feng thought before. This guy was well known in the Ancient God era, and he was not much different from Ashashi's and the Skeleton God General, the Great Swordsman Tyramon, with his eyes burning with white flames, obviously admired Qin Feng. Qin Feng knew. Next, he can also obtain a skill inheritance through this Skeleton God General. It must be said that the Skeleton God is not stingy with the rewards given to the first place in his own challenge.